It began not with a bang, but with a whisper, a single data point from a deep core sample, an anomaly that refused to be explained away. On this day, July 2nd, 2025, the world held its breath. The news broke slowly at first, a trickle of rumor from astronomical observatories. Then it became a torrent. They had found something alive, on the moon. For millennia, we have gazed at that silent silver orb. It was a symbol of stillness, a constant, lifeless companion in the vast, empty dark. We sent our poets to sing its praises and our astronauts to walk upon its desolate plains. We thought we knew it. We were wrong. The silence was not emptiness. It was waiting. The initial announcement was sterile, clinical. Words like biological signatures and extremophilic organisms were used. But humanity did not hear the scientific jargon. They heard a single, terrifying word: life. The implications crashed down upon us like a tidal wave. Fear, raw and primal, gripped the globe. It was a fear born of the unknown, a fear that we were no longer alone in our own cosmic backyard. That silent, beautiful moon, the lover's lantern and the poet's muse, suddenly seemed menacing. It hung in the night sky not as a beacon of tranquility, but as a silent, watching eye. An eye that held a secret we were never meant to discover. The world's screens all glowed with the same image, a magnified view of lunar regolith, and within it, a filament, a structure that moved. It was a slow, deliberate pulse, a heartbeat where none should exist. That simple, rhythmic movement shattered our most fundamental assumptions. The universe, we had long believed, was hostile to life, a vast expanse of radiation and vacuum. Yet here, in our celestial neighbor, life had found a way. This was not a discovery. It was an indictment of our own arrogance. We had looked to the distant stars for answers, for companions, all while life existed just a few days' journey away, hidden right before our eyes. The shockwave of this revelation rippled through every aspect of society. Markets plunged, religions reeled. The carefully constructed edifice of human understanding began to crack. What was this life? Was it a simple microbe, a fossil from a long-dead past? Or was it something more? Every possibility was a new source of terror. If life could exist on the barren moon, where else could it be hiding? Mars? Europa? The questions multiplied, each one more unsettling than the last. The universe no longer felt empty, it felt crowded, and we were no longer the sole proprietors of our own existence. The pale dot of Earth trembled, suspended in a new and terrifying reality. What form would this lunar life take? The possibilities were as varied as they were horrifying. Perhaps it was microbial. Tiny, single-celled organisms buried deep beneath the surface, surviving in frozen water deposits within shadowed craters. Bacteria that had evolved in near-perfect vacuum, bombarded by solar radiation. This scenario, while seemingly simple, was deeply unnerving. A life form that could thrive in such an extreme environment would be unlike anything on Earth. Its biology would be alien, its needs, its defenses, its very essence a complete mystery. We could not predict how it would react to our world or how our world would react to it. It would be life, but not as we know it. But what if it was more complex? Imagine a form of lichen or fungus, a creeping, slow-growing organism clinging to the walls of subterranean lava tubes, a lunar flora that had evolved without light, drawing energy not from a sun, but from geothermal vents or exotic chemical reactions deep within the moon. Plants that had never known a blue sky or gentle rain. Their existence would mock our own botanical sciences. Their strange, silent growth in the eternal darkness would be a chilling testament to life's tenacity. To find such a thing would be to find a haunted garden on our doorstep, a place where the rules of life were rewritten. The most terrifying possibility is, of course, animal life, not creatures like us, not beings of flesh and blood that need air to breathe. Imagine something else entirely, perhaps a silicon-based life form, something crystalline and slow, moving through the dust like a living rock. An animal that metabolizes minerals and perceives the world through vibrations in the regolith. Its senses would be alien. Its intelligence, if it had any, would be incomprehensible. To encounter such a creature would be to face a true monster from the void. It would not be hostile in a way we could understand. It would simply be other. Its very presence would be a violation of natural law. Each of these possibilities presents a unique kind of terror. Bacteria represent the fear of the unseen plague, the microscopic invader. Plants represent the fear of the uncanny, the silent and inexorable corruption of nature. And animals? They represent the fear of the monster in the dark, the thing that watches and waits. The discovery would not be a moment of triumph. It would be a moment of profound dread. We would have pulled back the curtain on the universe, only to find something staring back at us from the shadows. The lunar dust would no longer be just dust. It would be the soil from which our worst nightmares could grow. The immediate global reaction would be chaos, not the chaos of riots in the streets, at least not at first. It would be a deeper, more systemic chaos, a crisis of confidence. The world's governments would be paralyzed by the magnitude of the discovery. They would scramble to control the narrative, to calm the public. Emergency sessions of the United Nations would be called. World leaders would appear on television, their faces grim, their words carefully chosen. They would speak of caution, of international cooperation, of the dawn of a new era. But their measured tones would betray a deep and abiding fear, the fear of losing control. Panic would not be far behind. It would seep into the public consciousness through 1,000 different channels. It would be in the hushed conversations on subways, the frantic headlines on news sites, the apocalyptic sermons from pulpits. People would look up at the moon with a new sense of vulnerability. It was no longer a benign presence. It was a potential source of contagion, of invasion, of existential threat. Conspiracy theories would flourish like weeds, each more outlandish than the last. Was this a government plot, an alien deception, the end of days? In the absence of clear answers, humanity would turn to its oldest instinct, fear of the unknown. Governments would face an impossible dilemma. On one hand, the scientific imperative would be overwhelming. We must study this life. We must understand it. On the other hand, the instinct for self-preservation would demand total quarantine. Do not touch it. Do not bring it back. A new space race would ignite overnight. But this would be no race for glory. It would be a race for control. Nations would pour trillions into their space programs, not for exploration, but for strategic advantage. Who would get to the lunar life first? Who would control the samples? The moon would transform from a symbol of peace into the most contested piece of real estate in history. The very fabric of international relations would be stretched to its breaking point. Old alliances would fray. New, uneasy partnerships would form. The question of ownership would become paramount. Does the life belong to the nation that found it? Or does it belong to all of humanity? The debate would rage in the halls of power, while robotic probes and new landers raced toward the silent orb. The world, once united in its lonely existence, would find itself fractured by the discovery of a neighbor. We would be a world unmoored, adrift in a sea of new and terrifying possibilities, with the cold, watchful eye of the moon judging our every move. The dangers would be immediate and profound. The greatest fear, of course, would be biological. We would be dealing with an organism that evolved in a completely separate biosphere. It would have no shared evolutionary history with life on Earth. Our immune systems would have no defense against it. A single microbe brought back to Earth could be a planet killer. It could be a plague for which there is no cure, no treatment, no immunity. The risk of contamination would be absolute. The scientists tasked with studying it would be operating under the most extreme quarantine measures imaginable, a Pandora protocol designed to prevent the box from ever being opened on Earth. Beyond the biological risk lies the unknown. We would have no way of knowing the true nature of this life. What if it possesses abilities we cannot comprehend? What if it can communicate in ways we cannot detect? What if it is not passive, but active? A simple microbe could have complex behaviors. It could alter its environment. It could have a collective intelligence. We would be studying something with a rule book we could not read. Every experiment, every interaction would be a step into uncharted territory. The potential for unintended consequences would be immense. We could inadvertently trigger a reaction we could neither predict nor control. The scientific challenges would be monumental. How do you study something without contaminating it with your own earthly biology? Our probes, our rovers, our equipment are all covered in terrestrial microbes. The very act of observation could destroy the very thing we seek to understand. We would need to develop entirely new methods of robotic, sterile exploration. The pressure on the scientific community would be immense. They would hold the fate of the world in their hands. A single mistake, a single breach of protocol, could have consequences that would echo for eternity. The search for knowledge would become a tightrope walk over an abyss of annihilation. And what if we are the danger? What if this lunar life is fragile, delicate? Our arrival could be an extinction event. We could, with our clumsy machines and terrestrial contaminants, wipe out the only other known example of life in the universe. The moral weight of that responsibility is staggering. To be the discoverers of extraterrestrial life and also its destroyers, this is the ultimate paradox. The Pandora Protocol would not just be about protecting humanity from the moon, it would also be about protecting the moon from humanity. The discovery would place us in the role of potential gods or potential destroyers, and we may not be ready for either. The discovery of life on the moon would do more than just frighten us. It would fundamentally and permanently alter our perception of the universe and our place within it. For all of human history, we have labored under the assumption of our own cosmic loneliness. We were the miracle, the one spark of consciousness in a vast, indifferent cosmos. This belief shaped our philosophies, our religions, and our scientific endeavors. It gave us a sense of uniqueness, of special importance. The discovery of even the simplest microbe on the moon would shatter that illusion forever. The universe is not barren. Life is not a miracle. It is a cosmic imperative. This revelation would force a profound re-evaluation of everything we thought we knew. The Copernican revolution taught us we are not the center of the universe. The Darwinian revolution taught us we are not separate from the animal kingdom. This discovery would be the next great humbling. It would tell us we are not special. If life could arise twice independently in the same solar system, then it must be common. The stars above would no longer be mere points of light. They would become potential homes, billions of them. The silence we once perceived in the cosmos was simply our own deafness. The universe is likely teeming with life. Our entire scientific framework would be upended. Biology would no longer be the study of life on Earth, but the study of one local variant of a universal phenomenon. Astrobiology would become the most important field of science. We would search for the common patterns, the universal laws of life. Is DNA the only way? Is carbon the only foundation? The questions would be endless. Answering them would become the great project of the human species. Our purpose would shift from surviving on our own world to understanding the myriad forms of life that must exist on others. We would become explorers of a living cosmos. The world would never be the same. The end of our solitude would be both terrifying and magnificent. We would have lost our special place in the universe, but we would have gained a new and profound sense of connection to everything. The moon, hanging in our sky, would be a constant reminder. A reminder that we are part of something larger, something more complex and wonderful than we ever dared to imagine. It would be the end of our childhood as a species. We would be forced to grow up, to face the reality of a universe that is not empty, but full. And we would have to decide what our role in that universe will be.